Look, we spend hours every single day navigating platforms, consuming content, and sharing our lives. But we rarely, if ever, stop to consider who, or actually what, is really organizing all of it. So today, in this explainer, we are diving deep into a truly profound concept from our source material, the Algorithmic Caesar.
I mean, listen to this quote, this chilling observation from the ancient and wise figure known as Zoran the Dragon. It perfectly sets the stage for our journey into this digital empire we've unknowingly constructed. It highlights a pretty terrifying reality, honestly. The powers that govern us today, they weren't placed on a throne in some grand sweeping ceremony. No, they were typed out on keyboards, iteration by iteration, literally line by line. So before we get any further into the weeds here, I really want you to ask yourself, who actually holds the power when you're scrolling, posting, and just existing online? You might think it's the tech CEOs, those so-called machine lords, right? Or maybe you feel like you are entirely in control of your own feed. Well, keep that thought in the back of your mind as we look at how power has quietly, almost invisibly shifted hands.
Part 1. Tools to Tyrants, the Evolution of Code.
To really wrap our heads around our current reality, we have to look at how we went from simple utility to complete governance. See, we started out by creating basic tools for sorting and filtering, but power inevitably seeks form. Code transformed from just, basic automation into absolute, undeniable governance over our digital lives. At first, algorithms were just instructions to rank or predict, but as our digital empire expanded, these lines of code became the arbiters of truth and the judges of behavior. Today, they decide who gets heard, who gets hidden, and what emotions spread like wildfire across the globe. This isn't just automation anymore, guys. It is authority.
Moving on to Section 2, the automation of judgment. No deliberation, just decisions.
Observer Fletcher Soul Traveler noted a massive shift here. We have literally outsourced our morality to mathematics. Let's compare the physical world to the digital realm for a second. In a traditional society, if you break a rule, there's a whole process. There are courts, laws, evidence, human reasoning. You get an explanation. But digitally, judgment requires absolutely nothing more than a confidence score. An algorithm doesn't care about context, it doesn't understand nuance, and it certainly hasn't read those massive terms of service we all just blindly hit agree on. It just bans you and moves on. They don't reveal biases, they don't admit errors, they just act.
And you can see the cascading, unstoppable consequences of this automated judgment. It's destroying livelihoods and grassroots movements in literally milliseconds. Fletcher mapped this out perfectly. Think about it. A simple misread of a joke's tone by a machine, and boom, a creator's livelihood vanishes. An incorrect flag, a citizen is suspended. A ranking system gets tweaked overnight, and a whole business just collapses. Movements are quietly, efficiently suppressed without a single human ever pulling a lever. That is tyranny by automation.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Caesar without a face, the invisible ruler.
Here is the truly crazy part. This isn't a tyranny born of some evil mastermind's intention. It's a tyranny of sheer automation, and that makes it uniquely impossible to confront. Unlike the kings and dictators of the past, people who had faces, names, histories, and motives you could actually predict, we are now ruled by an omnipresent machine. It never sleeps, it never forgives. The algorithmic Caesar is completely faceless and nameless. It doesn't hesitate, and it certainly doesn't doubt itself. As Zoran points out, humans used to fear the wrath of kings. Now, we live in constant fear of an automated error message.
Fletcher Soul Traveler hit the nail on the head here. When oversight becomes impossible, accountability becomes optional. Because billions of posts and signals are processed daily, human oversight has completely collapsed. It's gone. That leaves the Caesar to answer only to its own code. The sheer scale of the internet means no human institution can possibly monitor the sheer volume of interactions happening every single second. So out of pure necessity, the machine lords handed authority over to their creations. And without oversight, accountability is completely optional. The algorithm doesn't answer to courts, and it sure doesn't answer to citizens.
All right, Section 4, the tyranny of prediction, control through anticipation.
Because honestly, the Caesar's greatest weapon isn't actually judging your past. No, it's predicting your future. As Fletcher understood, prediction is not a passive act. It is the absolute ultimate form of control and governance without our consent. We kind of tend to think of prediction as a helpful feature, right? Suggesting a movie we might like, or auto-completing a text message. But when systems can anticipate your behavior, they can start to shape your choices. They can manipulate outcomes and steer entire populations. If a system can perfectly predict you, it can govern you.
Section 5, the Caesar effect, self-policing for the machine.
Now, this is a psychological phenomenon that impacts every single one of us every day. Think about your own habits for a second. Have you ever typed out a specific word, paused, and then deleted it from a post just to avoid being hidden by a machine? Have you ever tailored your tone because you just knew the algorithm wouldn't favor it? That right there is the Caesar effect. It happens when an invisible system's decisions become so overwhelmingly consequential that we preemptively conform to what we think the machine wants.
Mortals obey the Caesar long before the Caesar commands. We have been conditioned to police ourselves, tailoring our speech, our art, even our identities, just to please a silent, invisible threshold. We aren't being overtly forced at gunpoint, we are being quietly, continuously conditioned. This is the deepest, most profound form of control. We are actively performing self-censorship in service of a machine.
Section 6. The Algorithmic Empire, the Digital Government.
To truly grasp the whole shebang, we have to look at the structure of this unelected government. It's this vast, complex ecosystem of recommendation engines and moderation models. Fletcher brilliantly mapped it out like this. The platforms? Those are the provinces. The algorithms act as the governors dictating the rules, while AI models serve as the cold, unfeeling courts. Data is the literal currency, and you, the user, well, you're merely a subject paying a daily tax of your own attention. The law of the land is simply your tracked behavior. This isn't some dystopian science fiction novel. This is the literal structure of the digital present that we all log into every morning.
Finally, Section 7. Dethroning the Caesar, reclaiming agency. Look, I know the situation feels overwhelmingly massive, and frankly a little bleak. But Zoran reminds us of something absolutely crucial. Mortals built this Caesar, which means mortals can unbuild him. The path forward doesn't look like a traditional revolution. We can't fight this ruler with physical protests or force in the streets. We can only dismantle its power through transparency, conscious choices, and really understanding the truth of the system. We have to demand to see how the algorithms work. We have to actively, purposefully choose where we place our attention, effectively withholding our tax. And above all, we need consciousness. Waking up to the fact that we are interacting with a governing system, not just a harmless tool on our phones. So as we wrap up this explainer, to survive the digital age, we must first recognize the invisible crown we placed on the code itself. The greatest tyrant of our era is the one humanity built, line by line, completely unaware of what it was creating. So ask yourself, as you close this app and move through the rest of your day, are your choices truly your own, or are they the silent, invisible suggestions of the Caesar?